Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tarot for You 444. As requested by many of you, I'm bringing more insight into the Understanding Men and Women series, which is kind of cool because many of you are twin flames, or perhaps you are twin flames and dealing with soulmates, or perhaps you are twin flames dealing with leaving a twin flame, going to a soulmate connection. And many of you are also not twin flames and are soulmates, right? Now, if you don't understand the term twin flame, you can maybe check out some of my other videos. And soulmates basically will apply to most people listening today. So what I want to do is I want to say thank you very much for being here today. I want to just quickly smell this beautiful soap while I'm here. It's pomegranate and poppy seed, and it's like a homemade kind of soap, that they sell in the store around here. And it smells really beautiful. And what I want to invite you to do, whether you are masculine or feminine, is to enjoy the simple pleasures in life, regardless of dating, regardless of what's going on with your twin flame journey or your soulmate relationship at this current time. And I want you to feed yourself and nurture yourself as much as possible. And now I'm going to get into the topic of the video that I want to talk about today. And today I want to talk all about perception and the perception of understanding within relationships and how important it is. When or if you get the opportunity to do my twin flame system, for those of you who are twin flames, you will start with my Ascension course, then you'll do my manifesting course, and then the advanced manifesting course. And within the topics there, I discuss a lot about ascension and a lot about manifesting specific people, and also resources and manifestations. I also talk about how we perceive things in a 3D way as opposed to a fifth dimensional way. And so what I want to do now is invite you to have a little understanding. I usually do drawings and notes, so just bear with me when I do a concept video. But I want you to understand that on the planet right now is basically two different consciousness levels. Okay. Now, consciousness is all about perception, is all about understanding who we are, is seeing things from a certain perspective of understanding. And I want to talk about how the third dimensional consciousness deals with the mind and the ego versus the fifth dimensional consciousness and above. Remember, we can have more than a fifth dimensional consciousness, but the fifth dimensional consciousness and above will generally use the heart space and the higher intellect. Okay. So you know yourself, if you're on an ascension path, if you're on the twin flame journey, as an example, you will be dealing with your life from a heart perspective and from a higher intellect, and you'll be understanding that the people around you and also the circumstances that you find yourself in are really primarily based on this third dimensional consciousness idea, where a lot of people are still in their mind and ego versus the heart and the higher intellect. Okay, and all of this is happening in the 3D reality. Okay, So, that's a lot to understand. So, our bodies reside in the third dimensional reality. There are some people on the earth who still have a third dimensional consciousness, which means they're in their mind, primarily their mind and their ego take control of them. And then we have people who are awakening, who are in this fifth dimensional consciousness and above, okay, and they have a higher intellect and are trying to come from their heart space when they deal with their life in general and when they also deal with people. So when you're in a higher consciousness, you will enjoy simple things, like a walk in nature. Like I said, I was smelling this soap because it's just so lovely, and also the texture of it feels amazing. You'll enjoy your food more. You will have less addictions. You will not get angry. You will be striving for balance. You'll understand that having a sexual relationship with someone is sacred, and you would probably call it making love as opposed to banging or hooking up with, or any of those other colloquial words that are used in the third dimensional consciousness, we could say. So what happens when a fifth dimensional consciousness and above person starts dating someone of a third dimensional consciousness? I was going to say or lower, because some people seem to even be lower than that, don't they? It's going to be a vibrational nightmare, basically, because what's going to happen is that the person who's in fifth dimensional consciousness is going to be many things that the third dimensional person is not going to be. So the fifth dimensional consciousness person will have these traits usually about them. And I'm just going to write some of them down now so I can explain them to you. And then I'm going to talk about what the third dimensional consciousness person would have as the opposite. Okay, so this is in terms of dating and or twin flame relationship here. I'm just doing a video. Okay, so in the fifth dimensional consciousness, we have this loyalty. We have the heart space open. We have looking for long-term, I should say, relationship. Talking about things like making love, understanding that, their body is sacred, their mind is sacred, and their soul is sacred. Okay, so this is a fifth dimensional consciousness and above. In a relationship, this is what they'd be looking for, and they'd also be willing to give it. So they'd be looking to be loyal. They'd be looking to be heart space open. They'd be looking for a long-term relationship. They would want to be making love. They would see the opportunity for a relationship as sacred. Okay, so the opposite would be true. Not always, but in many cases, the opposite would be true in a third dimensional consciousness person. Someone in the fifth dimensional consciousness who would want loyalty, maybe start dating someone in third dimensional consciousness who is not loyal, so just looking to hook up perhaps, perhaps even willing to deceive the other person in some kind of way. Many of you would have been through a false twin relationship where you've been deceived in some kind of way. The third dimensional consciousness person may not be heart spaced open all the time or at all, and they're probably not looking for something long term. In fact, they may be using the fifth dimensional consciousness person to use them for money, for time, for information, And as I said before, they'd be looking to hook up rather than make love. They would not see the relationship as being sacred. Um, and so they could maybe toss it at any time, okay? Or be argumentative. That's the other thing I didn't mention in the 5D, is that the fifth dimensional consciousness person in the relationship, if we're looking at these as differences, the fifth dimensional consciousness person would be really balanced, and this person over here may not be balanced because they're not awake enough to understand that balance is key. So they might have behavioral issues, they might have addictions, they might be argumentative, they might be in their ego. So we've basically got mind versus mind and ego for the third dimensional consciousness person versus this heart space open and higher intellect. So it makes it really difficult for twin flames and or soulmates to come together when one twin or one soulmate is awakened and the other one isn't. And of course, the more that they try and understand one another, the harder it is, because they're looking for different things. Okay, so many of you have, sent me messages related to false twin flames and how you've been used. Perhaps, you've been taken advantage of, whether that's in a sexual way, whether that's in a resourceful way. Maybe someone's taken money from you, or not taken, but asked for money and never given it back, or I don't know, you may have told someone your secrets and they've told people, or you've shared explicit photographs and they've shared them, or they've done some kind of disservice to you. So what I'm trying to say is that before you get into a relationship, if you're in fifth dimensional consciousness and above, you would want to do a little bit of digging before you get into a proper relationship with someone, to know whether or not they're in a higher consciousness. Now, the false twin flame, if we're talking about a false twin flame, they will seem like they're in a higher dimension of consciousness. They may be spiritual and or religious. They may come across as very loving. They may come across as love bombing. It may feel like the beginning of something wonderful. Now, this is, the only words I could describe this as is manipulative, and disloyal. This is what will happen with many soulmates and also many false twin flames. Okay, there have even been cases where false twin flames have said that they are, hashtag, I'm hashtag your twin flame, and then they've used the excuse of separation because, of the whole twin flame thing. But in the case of real twin flames, they actually do love each other and they're not trying to hurt one another. So I just wanted to mention that as a little side note. So some of these traits from fifth dimensional consciousness to third dimensional consciousness are very different. And you can see that it's very easy for someone who's in fifth dimensional consciousness and above to get hurt by someone in a lower consciousness. And as we awaken, our consciousness can go up. And many people who are in the twin flame community have a higher consciousness of fifth dimension. So if you can imagine that someone who is in, seventh dimensional consciousness, or even eighth dimensional consciousness, which is a really hard thing to attain, because it was said, that many of the masters, like Jesus and the Dalai Lama and Buddha and all of those kind of masters are in eighth dimensional consciousness. So you can imagine how difficult it would be to be in that height of consciousness. But imagine someone in that consciousness trying to date someone in a consciousness. I've said consciousness about 500 times, haven't I? But you know what I mean. Imagine an eighth dimensional consciousness person dating a third dimensional consciousness person. The vibration would just be too different. It would be really difficult. For many twin flames, when they meet their false twin flame, not everyone has a false twin flame, but if they do meet their false twin flame, that usually happens as they're transitioning themselves from third dimensional consciousness into fourth dimensional to fifth dimensional. So it's this transition that they're on their way to doing, and then they meet their false twin flame and think it's their real one because they haven't quite awakened enough yet. So many of you recently have actually found out that your twin flame is a false twin flame, because when you first met them, whether that's 10, 20 years ago or 2 years ago or 2 months ago, you were in a different consciousness back then. And you can kind of understand that, what you seek is seeking you. And I'm not saying that you're disloyal or heart space closed or any of those yucky things, but when you are trying to be the light, because you are the light, but the more you shine your light, the more the dark becomes attracted to that light, if that makes sense. We have dogs barking as a synchronicity, agreeing with me there. So before you come into any kind of relationship with somebody and start telling them your secrets, start sending pictures of yourself, start listening to them tell you a sob story perhaps about how they need money, or how they, if only they had better circumstances in their life, and their mother's brother's sister's cousin is trying to take advantage of them and they need $500 right now, that kind of thing. I want you to be really clear in who you are, and so then you can discern who they are. And a really great way of doing this is to not give up anything from yourself that could cause alarm for you later on for at least the first 3 months of a relationship. So, don't have a sexual relationship with this person. Don't send them photographs. Don't let them know all of your secrets. Don't send them money. Okay, see if they're willing to stick around with you for 3 months, and hopefully they don't ask you for any of these things anyway. Of course, if you're falling in love with someone, you're going to want to be intimate in some kind of way, but I would suggest that you hold off on doing anything with that person until you have had some discernment time. Okay, discernment's one of these wonderful words. I'm going to write it down because for some of you may not have heard of this word, and it's a wonderful word that you can look up. Okay, and I'm going to put it next to another word here. I'm just checking the time to see how long. I'm trying to look at there, but it's kind of hidden. Okay, so discernment and perception are 2 words I want you to understand today. Discernment is when you ascertain whether something is good or bad, or is perhaps right for you or wrong for you. It's this place of comparison where you can see whether or not something might be good for you. So if you're a parent, or if you've ever been a really good friend to someone and you've heard them tell you about, another person that they like, maybe a friend or a lover or a partner or something like that, or someone they're thinking of dating, if it was a friend talking to a friend, and they might say, oh my goodness, you know, this guy is the bee's knees, he's amazing, you know, he's I don't know, he's a record producer and he's gonna fly me out to Timbuktu next week and we're gonna go, I don't know, shopping together or something like this. And as the friend, you might go, well, gee, that sounds a little bit too good to be true, doesn't it? And in the case of twin flames, many times it is too good to be true, right? Because that's what twin flames are. It really is that feeling of too good to be true. So when you have discernment, you know, if a friend was telling you about someone, right, you might go, well, that sounds a bit wishy-washy, you know. Where's this guy from? Timbuktu. Is that actually on the map? You know. So you can be discerning with people around you quite easily, but when it comes to yourself and dating and love and twin flames and or soulmates, depending on what we're looking at here, it's very hard to discern when you're falling in love or when you're falling for someone. So this is why it's a really great idea to start writing down the pros and the cons of this person. Maybe it's a conversation you had with them and they said something like, you know, if only I had $500 to help my Aunt Bessie, you know, she's really struggling right now. And they might be, you know, have a long pause after saying that, expecting you to help them out, right? I want you to have discernment. What would you tell your friend to do in this circumstance? That's just one example. Another example with discernment might be love bombing. Okay, so many times in the case of twin flames, this can happen because someone is actually really in love with you. But for soulmates, if someone's love bombing you from the get-go, telling you that they're madly in love with you, that they perhaps want to marry you, that they want to be with you, that they've never seen anything more beautiful than you, that's kind of a red flag. So I'm going to draw some little flags around this word because it enables you to really think about what someone's saying. I want you to, you know, in the midst of love, it's very hard to listen sometimes, but when you understand that they've got an underlying message when they say certain things, you would ask questions like, well, why is this person offering their whole self to me after we've known each other for 5 hours on social media? Isn't that a red flag? You know, is it also a red flag that they're asking me for money after I've only known them for a week? Is it also a red flag that they want to know my physical address? You know, is it also a red flag that they're asking me what my maiden name was, or my, you know, etc., etc. So be discerning as if you're doing it for a friend, okay? Because love is blind. Literally. The next thing I want to talk about is the word perception here. When you are falling in love, your perception of a person changes because of all the feelings and emotions that come together with falling in love. You kind of want them to be the perfect person for you. And so you might ignore that little put down that they gave you. Oh, well, you know, you might have said, does my ass look fat in this? And they might have said yes. You know, I know you might want the truth, but is that someone that you would be willing to spend the rest of your life with, or a long time with? So I want you to understand that when someone is in love, they definitely have a different perception about something than when they have, you know, not fallen in love. Okay? So that's why when, you know, your friend comes to you and says, you know, oh my gosh, you know, this guy is amazing, and dot 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 dot, and on they go. And you might go, well, you're, you know, love is blind, and obviously you're not seeing the red flags. So I want you to understand that there are different levels of consciousnesses of people, as well as that when you fall in love, you know, when I fall in love, it will be completely, or I'll never fall in love again. Remember that song? Beautiful song. You know, especially women, no offense, I'm a woman, but especially women, they want to fall in love forever. You know, they want that forever guy. And so when they see someone who is coming to them like they want, love can be blind. So I want you to try and be discerning for yourself. And perhaps even if you need to, you could ask a friend, someone that you trust, about someone else. You can always get a reading with me if you're feeling a bit dubious about a person. I'm now doing 30-minute, 45 and 1 hour readings, because some people just, you know, want a quickie, some people want a medium, some people want a longie. So that's what I've been doing. My details are in the description box below for that. So this is part of the Understanding Men and Women series, and of course it works with both genders. You can have a higher consciousness man fall in love with a lower consciousness woman, and vice versa. But the goal is that you really want to be trying to fall in love with someone of the same consciousness, or at least trying to reach for the consciousness that you're in. And I know I said that word a lot, but a consciousness of someone also changes someone's perception. Okay, remember the difference between the 3D and the 5D here. Someone working from the third dimensional consciousness is going to be in their mind and their ego a lot more. So they're going to perhaps be argumentative, they're going to perhaps be judgmental, they're going to be perhaps have more expectations in terms of, you know, even how someone looks. And the 5D or fifth dimensional consciousness person's going to work from the higher heart. They're going to see someone for who they really are. They're going to use their higher intellect and have discernment, depending on their consciousness level. They still might be working on their ego perspective. You know, if you look down on something with an ego perspective, it means you can see it, kind of like a godlike view. You know, you're looking from a higher perspective. If you can imagine an eagle flying around looking down, you know, it's a beautiful perspective that the eagle has, because it can see everything that could potentially happen. So I want you to understand that consciousness really is important, whether or not you're in a same-sex relationship with someone or a, you know, different gender-based relationship. Take gender how it resonates for you, as always. And this is why the twin flame community has so many troubles too with the masculine energy, as well as soulmates, because sometimes you've got someone beautiful in their heart space, warm, loving, and then you've got someone in their third dimensional consciousness who is judgmental, egotistical, you know, still having issues with drugs or perhaps alcohol or addiction issues, behavioral issues, you know, and it just doesn't work. So yeah, this is a really great reminder to make sure you have discernment and understand that your consciousness will dictate what perception you have about someone else, whether that's, and that's even in family relationships as well. You know, some people write to me and say, look, I no longer resonate with my family anymore because I just don't seem to see eye to eye with them. And it's a vibrational thing. You know, we're all on a different vibration, and if someone is on a higher vibration, And that doesn't mean that they're better than someone else, but if someone is in a higher level of consciousness than someone else, there's going to be a disconnect, because when they come together, they're not going to see eye to eye on things. They're not going to understand, why is she talking about crystals and spirituality and, all of these conspiracy theories and angels and you know what I mean? It's like, it's going to be weird for someone who's in third dimensional consciousness to understand someone in a higher consciousness. Okay? And for each person, as we ascend, there's different levels. Okay? So I think I'm going to leave it there. I've given you enough information for this concept video, but I'm going to keep trying to add each week to the Understanding Men and Women series. Although I didn't primarily talk about men and women, I really do feel like the levels of consciousness are important here, whether we're talking about twin flames or soulmates. So I hope you found this very helpful. If you did, give it a like, and also a share if you want to. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you need to get in touch with me for any of my courses, they're all available in modules now. So you can do them slowly or at your own pace, or do them quickly, however you want to do them. And I hope you have a beautiful day, night, afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world. And I'll talk to you real soon. Mwah. Thank you for joining me. It's been lovely to have you here. See you later. Bye.